Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to round 5 of this season. Today we're going to have a very special, day because today we're going to also have a sprint race. So this will just be a short qualifying at first. So all these 16 drivers have 18 minutes to put in their best qualifying laps to determine the grid order for the sprint race, which in turn will determine the grid order for the main race. Today we also have someone else named Ivan Hafterkamp,
Hello,
which
guys.
does have two races as well. Iwan, take it away.
All right, this is my first commentating stream. It's a pleasure that I'll can be here right now. So we watch Zom L leaving the pit lane in the Haas, going for his first lap around the Qatar circuit. Let's see what he can put in on effort.
Yeah, of course, this is one of the faster tracks. I believe you have a good grasp of what kind of lap times we might be expecting. So, what do you expect for a pole time?
I don't actually have the times on me right now, but I think they're gonna be like the real F1. It's not going to be far off the pace, I think.
Yeah, so later this year they're also going to drive here, of course. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the game. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting to actually compare these lap times. These drivers are currently driving compared to those drivers, what they're going to do at the end of the year. It's a very difficult track as well to get all these corners correctly. It's very difficult, especially in terms of the track limits, because you can shoot over the track limits quite easily. And it's going to be watching out for those penalties.
Exactly, it's quite a challenging track. When you push the limits a little bit too hard, you go over the track limit, and you'll find yourself your lap being invalidated, which it cannot count. So we watch our first contender of the night, Zomb L, going on the main straight, going for his first lap in this short qualifying, going into turn one, braking very late, around 50 meters, steering into turn one, just on the limit, not going outside of the track line.
It's going to be very, very difficult to actually push these cars to the limit because keep in mind, these drivers are not driving equal car performance cars. This is a immersive league where everyone is driving their realistic car performance. So, for example, this Haas is going to be it's going to be more challenging to keep this car in the track limits and to drive it fast as well. So, it's going to be very important to get a good first banker lap. And thus far, it seems pretty good.
He seems to be completely alive and be one with the car. He's pushing the limits very good. There's a yellow in sector 3. I think some guys are just waiting to start their lap. There's nothing to do with it.
Yeah, most likely just backing off to give each other some space, of course. Purple sector 2, but he is the first driver on track, so it makes sense. And behind him, it seems like there is a Red Bull flying as well. Anyway, across the line, he's now coming on to the start-finish line. What is very interesting is that the deployment actually is already off before you approach the main straight. So could it maybe be a tactic to, in the turns, actually turn off the ERS to make sure you have still some ERS deployment on the main straight? Is that something the drivers might be thinking about, Ivan?
Maybe, because on the main straight you need all of your ERS systems to work. When we see Koen in the McLaren, we just switched away. We're watching Lennart going over the main straight. What's he going to put in on the time? He said a 1:21.1. That's the time they're all gonna chase at the moment. When we watch Koen going through sector 3, he did not put in a purple sector 2. Just finds the limit. Downshifting to turn 16 down to gear 4, going on the main straight. Also his deployment is used already. What time is it going to be? It's going to be a 1:21.5.
Keep in mind, this is the 8th fastest car, if I recall correctly. Only the Williams and I think it was the Haas are slower than the McLaren, or was it the Alfa Romeo? So actually putting this on the front row, even if there have only been 7 drivers who set a lap time, is still pretty impressive. Of course, this McLaren is gonna get a buff anywhere in the future, but considering it's Codemasters, we might have to be patient as Kagoda goes
And
fast. Mercedes.
the Red Bull finds himself in P4, 8/10 of the pace.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially from a car which is so fast. But then again, we might have encountered some problems with back markers, of course, especially in this session. Everyone has to set a lap time. Everyone is going to do 3 runs. And with 16 cars on the track, that is going to be challenging to navigate the traffic. So, yeah, who knows? Who knows what he might have encountered?
Exactly. Boss Cookie is now going into turn 16 down to gear 5 onto the main straight. Oh, he just downshifted. That will cost him a very little of time. Also, his deployment is used and he's going on to P3, only 2.5 tenths of the pace. That's quite interesting in an Aston Martin, out qualifying a Red Bull.
It's actually very interesting in general because we see 2 very familiar names on P2 and P3. Of course, Leonard and Cookie having their experiences already in Zandvoort and in Silverstone. So might we be seeing some drama again this weekend? We will just have to wait and see what time will tell us. Tell us. So we just got to hear from the producer that actually the Red Bull driver, so the guy in P5 at the moment, is Formula Cringe's brother. So that's very interesting, and it's also always fun to see, of course, relatives driving in these series together. So yeah.
Maybe we can switch on the stream onto FICO in the Ferrari because he just said in a purple sector 1 he's pushing the limits very hard. Just stays between the track limits here. Half in sector 2. Going through turn 10. Just a little bit of a lock up on his front left tire. Downshifting to gear 4 but get the rotation to the back straight. Also a purple sector 2. FICO seems to find a lot of time. Maybe he can put in a purple sector 3 to put in his provisional pole. Just with 10 minutes on the clock. Onto turn 16. Let's see. Downshifting to gear 4 to get every rotation possible. Switching the DRS on. Also his deployment is used. What time is it gonna be on the board for FICO? Going to be 1:26, just 3/10 for pole position right now. That's great, I think so, Colin.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, FICO again, just showing his brilliance. I mean, not only this season, but also last season, he has proven himself to be a very good contender for at least podiums. We know that the Ferrari isn't as strong as the Red Bull, so actually taking out a victory here is going to be incredibly difficult, especially against someone who's as good as Ruletorn is. But getting it consistently on the first row, he has done this season, is still very impressive. As we actually see that Ruletorn hasn't driven out of the pit lane yet, so could it be that he is just doing like a Sebastian Vettel, only going for 1 run in the entire qualifying session, or does he have...
I think there's any way possible that he's saving the tires for the sprint race later on this session.
Yeah, that could very well be.
As we watch the Mercedes of Big Sauce going around. Oh no, he's going to the pit lane. He aborted his lap.
But then again, in mind, I want to come back on the tire saving. It is better to just put a lap time in early in the session, so you at least know that you have a banker lap, instead of just, you know, postponing it until the end of the session, or at least until the later half of the session, which is or could be considered to be quite dangerous, especially on a track which is so track limits dependent, you know. So it's very easy to go over the boundaries, even though we haven't really seen a lot of people actually do that, which is interesting too. As you see, Rillator now actually exiting the pit lane.
We see Alex going around turn 15, going almost onto the main straight. He's got 11, now 13% of ERS left. Switching on the DRS on the main straight. He's currently P11, 1.7 seconds off the pace. What's it gonna be for Alex? It's gonna be P6, only 6 or 9/10, I'm sorry, off the pace. That's great in the Aston Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he's like 4/10 off Cookie, and considering Cookie is a phenomenal driver, especially on these qualifying laps, especially on these race pace. He's an incredibly fast driver, and to be within, well, 4/10 of him is still quite an achievement. Someone in the chat asked, can we spectate P9, or who's now P10, Zombo, who's now going for a lap? He's lining it up on the last turn. He is, of course, driving the Haas, so getting out of the bottom, what is it, 7th positions. It's going to be very difficult. We will just have to see.
Take it away, Colin. Follow him through the lap.
Okay, so we are approaching turn 1. Turn 1, of course, a very right sweeping corner, very fast, where you can probably expect the most overtakes. And this left-hander, very difficult to judge correctly, but he does seem to be keeping it quite nice and tidy. Of course, using all the space on the left, turning into the right, beautiful. And then another right-hander, very fast, as you can maybe expect some overtakes into this left-hander here, keeping it nice and tidy, a little bit of oversteer. It seems like this is going to cost him some lap time. This is a very fast, long right-hander, easy to misjudge, but it does seem like he judged that quite perfectly. A very fast right-hander followed by a slower left-hander. Left-hander exit, very important to judge correctly, and he was on the absolute limit there on the exit. And now followed by 2 right-handers, which are also quite fast, but these are flat, so gaining a lot of time here is going to be quite difficult. Here it is a slight lift, and it seems like he went over the boundaries there, and that is an invalid lap time.
Meanwhile, his teammate Benny didn't improve on his lap time, or is he just starting the lap? I think he's just starting, seeing his ERS right now. Going through turn 1. Oh, he's got miles of the track limits, that's alright. Turn 3 and turn 4, also very, very good between the track limits. The Haas doesn't rotate very, very often compared to the Red Bull and the Mercedes.
Yeah.
He's just taking it very easily through Sector 1. He's got a 2/10 improvement on his previous best time.
Of course, the target for Benny will be to improve on his teammate, who is, well, 2.5 tenths ahead of him. So it is very much possible for Benny to beat out his teammate, especially since his teammate accidentally just invalidated his lap time.
Rulatorn puts in the fastest time of this session on 1:19.8 in the Red Bull. That's a 8/10 gap of FICO in the Ferrari. That's a huge margin, Colin.
Yeah, that's absolutely unbelievable. That's extraordinary there from Rulatorn. I mean, we all know Rulatorn is an amazing driver, but, well, close to 9 tenths, I think. That's just crazy. As we see, as Benny now goes across the line, who was improving, and he does improve, but he is slightly behind his teammate, only 90 thousandths. So it's going to be very interesting to see this inter-team battle as well, how it is going to evolve into the sprint race and into the main race. Let's see who is on a flyer.
The Alpha Tauri in P14. XG's. Oh, he just invalidated his lap. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, but I don't think he was on a flyer anyway. I don't think anyone currently is on a flyer. Test Will is on an outlap, so we can follow him along. Yeah, everyone else is boxing, so right now we're just going to go on board with Test Will, who's warming up his tires. Of course, being in P15 in one of these slowest cars is to be expected. Still about half a second of his teammate, so there is some improvement on the lap, but yeah, it's going to be about getting the experience, especially in like these backmarker cars, trying to get the experience of how people drive, how people race, and how you can battle with people, and also along the way you will also improve your lap times, right? So
exactly, when the track warms up.
As we just heard from our director, 19.8 is only 1/10 of the world record. So Rulatorn did have an extraordinary lap there. And that just goes to show what kind of brilliant driver he actually is. So that's basically pole position already sealed, as it seems at the moment.
Yeah, but maybe it motivates the other drivers to just push the limits a little bit further so we can see a new world record in this stream tonight.
Yeah, maybe we can. I mean, we have a lot of amazing drivers, of course, in the name of Lennart and FICO, but if they're going to be able to challenge the almost world record in those cars, that's going to be quite difficult.
Yeah, but don't discount Kogoda and Cookie because they're also two amazing drivers who can push the limits very good.
Yeah, of course, of course.
As Teswell just aborts his lap.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's look around. So currently everyone is going on an outlap, Elon. Are there any drivers who caught your eye during this qualifying session who did an outstanding job?
I think in P7, Luke Mills did an amazing job putting the Williams into P7. That car is usually just a boat to drive. And let's see, he's going through the lap right now. He's pushing the limits going through turn 1. Sector 1, I mean, I'm sorry. Let's see what time is it gonna be for him. Is it an improvement in Sector 1? Let's see.
Did my eyes just deceive me, or did he just improve in Sector 1 by 0.4 of a second?
No, it did improve, but only on 43 thousandths of a second.
Okay, thank you.
If it was 4/10, I would be very happy for him.
Yeah, I was already wondering how he was able to do that, but look at those track limit margins, man. He is absolutely flying with that car. 1/10 gaining, so that will put him ahead of Koen in the McLaren.
He put in a purple Sector 2 in a Williams. There's a car in the way. Hopefully he will get out of the way of him. Just a little bit of understeer. I don't think the car is gonna move. But he will pick up a nice toe from the car in front. That's great.
Yeah, the car seemed to be a bit difficult to behave there in the last sector, but let's see what the time is going to be. Is it going to be an improvement? Yes, it is.
It's going to be P6 in the Williams for Luke Mills. That's an extraordinary drive. As Ikostev just retired from the session, he puts it into the wall. That's a shame.
Yeah, that's the Red Bull drivers qualifying session over as I go on board with Koen Harteiser here. In the McLaren, of course, driving for my team, obviously not biased here. Driving through Sector 1 looks very, very stable and very good here. Driving through the fast right-handers, let's see what he's going to be able to do.
Tuku just going over the line, didn't improve on his time.
He didn't improve, so that was his last attempt on improving. So that's going to be...
watching the Alpha Tauri who just invalidated his lap. Then we got on P11, 7 Eco 104. Oh, and he just spins out. Oh, that's a shame. Watch Alex, P8, he just ran past our McLaren. Let's see what time is he gonna be. It's gonna be P8, didn't improve on his time.
Let's see what the
Haas. P12 goes into P11, just a slight improvement as we see all the cars just going through the main straight. The Alfa Romeo just added one position for him, P15.
Yeah, there are a lot of guys who can still improve on their lap time.
Lennart just improved a 10th.
Would that be enough to put him to safety? I mean, Pagoda in the second sector was a little bit behind, but did he improve enough to take the fight to Lennart for P3? The answer is no, he did not, but it doesn't. There's very little margin between those guys there.
Only Faco improved 1/10. Cookie has invalidated his lap, which means Rulathorn is on pole for the Grand Prix. Faco in P2, Lennart P3, Pagoda P4, and Cookie P5.
Pole position by 7/10 is extraordinary, especially also still in this league. I think hats off to him. Definitely the master of qualifying in this session for me at least.
Exactly.
So, Ivan, you can do the rundown of all the positions we will be starting the sprint race with.
All right, we got in P1 Rulatorn with a 7/10 gap onto Faco, followed by Lennart Kagoda, Cookie, Luke Mills, Koen Hartijzer, Big Sauce, Alex, and IQ Steph in P10. Outside of the top 10, we got Zomp L, Benny, 7 Eco 104, Iggy's, Clot, and Test Wheel 23 closing the field on P16.
It's a very eventful qualifying thus far. Of course, the dominance from Rulatorn is set to continue, and it's going to be a very interesting race. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking with Rulatorn, and we exchanged some words, of course. And he told me that he is aiming for the record of having the most wins in this series in a row. So we'll be seeing if Rulatorn, can continue his campaign of trying to challenge that record. I believe it's currently being held by the one and only Kagoda, who has been supreme in the first 2 seasons. But we will be looking forward to see what the reigning champion can do.
As they're all choosing the tire strategy right now, I'm quite amused what they're going to take for the start. I think we're going to see a little bit of different strategies. Someone going to start on the mediums, and maybe if you dare, you can try to start on the softs. But yeah, the tires will not last very long on this quite challenging track. It's very harsh for the tires. You think so, Colin?
I mean, there are like 10 laps. There are a lot of high-speed corners, so it is going to be quite challenging. But let's see what these drivers have chosen. So P1 Rulatorn is actually on the softs, while Fico, Leonard, Kagoda are all on mediums, while Cookie then again is on the softs. Luke is on the mediums. Koen is on the mediums. Big Sauce on the mediums. Alex on the softs. Gustav on the softs. Zombo on the mediums. Benny on the mediums. Taco on the mediums. Ixis on the mediums. And the Clot and Test Wheel also on the mediums. So mostly people have been choosing for the mediums, which is very interesting. So let's see if these guys on the softs can pull away enough of a gap to the guys on the mediums.
Yeah, but don't forget it's only 10 laps in the sprint race, so the softs will last only 4 or 5 laps. So it's very good for the medium runners to just keep up with the soft tire compounds.
Yeah,
and when they switch onto the softs, I think they have quite a few advantage compared to the guys on the softs right now.
I do agree. But the thing is, Rulatorn had a additional set of softs, or maybe even 2 sets. I'm not sure if he did an additional run after he did the 19.8. But what is interesting to me is that even on the same tire, Rulatorn was able to pull a 7/10 gap to Fico. And Fico is an amazing driver himself. So that means that Rulatorn, especially on these softs compared to Fico's mediums, is going to be able to pull away even faster in the first couple of laps. And I don't think he's going to conserve his ERS because he's going to need that gap later into the race. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what these drivers are going to do in terms of strategy and how it's going to play out.
But keep in mind that these tires will last to the end, the mediums, I suppose, because the drivers aren't allowed to don't do a pit stop. They can do a pit stop, but it will cost you very much time, because when it is a sprint race, there's no need to have a pit stop in between your race time. So I don't think the soft tires will last to the end on a very good margin compared to the mediums.
Yeah, I agree. There's like an additional 20 seconds it's going to cost you. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. With other words, it isn't ideal. As we are waiting for the lights to turn on, and the lights are now turning on, and it is 5 red lights, and it's a very long time until the lights go out, but it's lights out, and away we go. That was a bit strange, but it seems like Rulatorn had a very good start. Leonard and Fico are alongside, but Fico has the inside line, so nothing is happening. We see some fighting between Cookie and Kagoda in the back there, but it seems like Cookie is taking the position. Cookie and
They're
Kagoda
still side by side.
Seems like there's a little bit of wheel banging involved there, but Cookie does have the position.
He just went outside of the track, but it was a racing line. Oh, they touched! Oh, they touched!
Yeah, of course, but keep in mind this is lap 1, so we are going to be a little bit more lenient with these kind of things. And in the end, it's always up to the FIA for this kind of stuff. So.
I think the Mercedes of Kongoda has a front wing damage. He just tapped the rear of Boss Cookie, just minor, but I think that was enough to get some damage as we watch Koen just being on the edge of Kagoda. Oh, they touched my own incident.
Yeah, so yeah, that is an ideal. Kokoda falling back to the end of the grid there, and Kun as well with a slight.
As we see in P16, AQ Steph on the soft tires going into the gravel trap. What's happened to him? Did he collide with someone? I don't know. As we see, is he going into the pit lane? No, so I don't think there's any damage involved on his car. As we see someone going into the pit lane.
Yeah, Kagoda's boxing, so most likely damage. And his tires obviously also very, very hot after the spin, after the contact with Kun there. Yeah, it's a shame to see these drivers, their races end like this, of course, but it is what it is. As I see Taco and Big Sauce having a fight there in the back of the field, which is very interesting to watch here. As we see that Claude is actually spinning out there. That's a massive shame there for Claude. Losing out a couple of positions there, and Taco's still holding on to the Mercedes driver out in front.
Keep in mind that in P3, Lennart is only 4/10 of Faco going onto the main straight in a couple of seconds. As they approach sector 3 now, you can just stay between the half-second gap of Faco in front. Oh, he just almost lose the rear right there.
Yeah, there are a lot of close gaps here. I mean, Faco, Lennart, and Cookie. Then we have Alex and Luke very close together. And Big Sauce goes around the outside of the last corner on Taco. Going for the move. Absolutely brilliant move there from Big Sauce. Waiting for a mistake there from Taco. And as we see Alex overtaking Luke there on the inside in the first turn. Very nice move there from Alex, who moves up into P5.
We see in P6 Luke Mills chasing Alex in the Aston Martin. I think the soft tires already are overheating on this fast street limit circuit, as we can call it, because it's basically a street circuit when the track limits are so violating you when you cross over to them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, Cookie has a good car, of course, and he's a pretty good driver, but currently he's stuck behind Lennart and Faco, who are going to have, Lennart is going to have DRS on Faco, so it's going to be very difficult to make use of those soft tires behind the Alpine driver. So maybe he is just going to have to drive along with these guys and try to stay with them.
As we see going onto the main straight, Lennart is only 6/10 behind Faco, but I don't think it's enough on this stage in the race for Lennart to overtake Faco.
It's going to be...
He's going to the right of the straight.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it makes sense for Lennart to pass Faco at this stage in the race. I think it's better...
As I see Rulatorn going into the AI of Kagoda, who just retired, and Rulatorn has seemed to pick up front wing damage.
Yeah, he has no wing anymore, just not at all. He's understeering so much. This is ruining Rulatorn's race. Could this possibly endanger his win streak? Of course, sprint races don't count for your win streak, but he's going to drop a lot of places for the main race.
That's such a shame for Rulatorn, who did his absolute best to avoid Kagoda's AI, but there was no way possible. Oh, that's such a shame for him. He was just absolute on the limit there.
This is going to be very painful, especially if he's now going to have to... He is going to have to box because he can't keep the car on track, and that's going to give him an additional 20 seconds, if you may, time penalty, because he's going to have to change his wing, he's going to have to change his tires, he's going to have to drive slowly, on the main straight, so that's going to really hurt his race here. With only 5 laps to go, I doubt he's going to be able to make up some positions, but he might as well keep driving because every single position he can gain.
Let's see Leonard into turn 1, almost going into the back of Faco. They're inches between of each other. Faco has just a little bit of a loose rear end, which means you've got a little bit of oversteer on the car. Just to point it out in a direct way he wants. You see the car just twitching around through the circuit of Qatar, with Leonard on his foot marks.
These two drivers knowing each other very, very well. I believe they had fought for several world titles already together. I believe once in IOR, twice in CRS. So yeah, these guys know exactly how the other drives. And also here, of course, they've battled quite a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this battle will evolve.
And keep in mind that it is the battle for P1, and Cookie is only 7/10 of Leonard, but I think on his soft tires there's no way he can keep up with this pace from the front runners, because they will only inch away on the medium tires.
I mean, the medium tires probably by now already have an advantage. And furthermore, the second car is going to have a DRS advantage. And it seems like on raw pace, Fico may be a little bit quicker, but due to the DRS advantage and the slipstream advantage Leonard has right now, I think that Leonard could maybe attempt to go for a move here. Well, not yet, it seems, because he was conserving his ERS, but let's see, both have about the same ERS as the other. So, yeah, this is going to be very interesting how this battle will play out. Leonard, of course, being one of the best drivers here in terms of playing the last lap game. We've seen that in his debut season in Jeddah in F2, where he was playing, I believe, I don't recall who the other driver was, but when he was playing the DRS games and managed to win the Grand Prix by a couple of tenths, let's see if that experience is going to pay off for him.
Keep in mind that also these two drivers, I don't think they've got any track limits from now on. So it's only a battle on track and not off track, with the penalties applied after the race.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have to keep it between the limits to keep it on track fight.
As we get Jake, the Red Bull team principal, saying, "What WTF? Kagoda's AI broke his wing." Yeah, that's extremely unfortunate. Nothing Rillaton could do about it, as Rillaton is actually looking to gain a place there on his teammate, as he's driving behind him, or maybe it was a team order, because Yusef, I don't know how to say that exactly, just seems to let him back.
As we see, Leonard don't have the speed advantage on Faco to go past him on this occasion. Maybe they've got 3 laps to go, so maybe Leonard just is waiting for his opportunity on the final or the penultimate lap to go between Faco and the last lap.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but could it be that they're slightly working together to push Cookie out of the DRS, and then
I don't think so, no, because they know both that Cookie is on the soft tires and he was 7/10 behind at the end of previous lap, so he just already loses 2/10 by a single lap, and his rear end is very much struggling as he just get out of the DRS of Leonard. So I think they're just focusing on each other and managing the ERS management deployment, while Fico still has 50% and Leonard goes almost under the 30%.
As Klot is the first driver to actually rack up a time penalty for track limits. So it does seem that if Rullatorn is able to gain enough time, so that's about 7 seconds, on Klot he is able to actually start 13th instead of that last, which is quite positive still, especially after he broke his wing in the fashion he did.
Let's see, the fight for P1 still continues. Again, Leonard doesn't have the speed to overtake Fico into turn 1. As we see them going through sector 1, they're almost twitching around with the rear end of the car. They both have a pointy nose, so which means they can turn in very sharp into the corner.
As there actually were 2 overtakes there in the back of the field, so Zommel just overtook Benny, and I think that Tess will just drop 2 positions. as
Oh,
Taco,
Lennart just blocked it.
yeah, exactly, are actually fighting here. As Leonard actually dropped outside of the DRS zone, so FICO actually does seem to be safe for now. Big Saw seems to be struggling with the rear there, trying to chase down the Haas drivers right in front of him for P8 and P7, looking to maybe score 1 point or 2 points in a sprint race. As we see a Red Bull there standing still, it's probably, yeah, it is EU staff standing still there.
It's not the race he has hoped for.
Yeah. Stuff happens, especially in your debut race. But it's just about getting the experience, like I already said previously. And Sommel actually also gets his 3-second time penalty, which is major because that will mean that he will drop at least 2 places, maybe even 3 places.
As Rulatorn also picks up his 3-second penalty to go over the track limits 3 times this race.
That could actually be quite painful because that will mean that now he actually has to overtake Klot on the track instead of just getting the penalty. As we see actually more drivers starting to get now track limit penalties, but it does seem that Big Sauce got the track limit penalty while fighting with cars, so could it be that he was forced by? I'm not sure. I didn't see it.
As we see the McLaren of 7 Eco drops it. Oh,
yes.
and the Alfa Romeo just slides through the screen. They both lost it in outcoming of turn 5. I think the rear end of the car just was a little bit overheated and they didn't have the grip they asked for.
Yeah, that's what happens with like higher tire wear. It's getting more and more difficult to actually control the car. But of course, with also the fuel loads getting lighter, yeah, it's getting more and more difficult to control the car. As we start the last lap of the race, FICO comes to be leading over Lennart with almost 2 seconds there, and Lennart over Cookie with 3.7 seconds. And then Cookie over Luke with 4.3 seconds. So at the front, it's very open, but Big Saw is currently looking at the rear of the Haas, but he doesn't have the ERS to actually pose any kind of threat, as Benny actually goes for the pass on Zombol. Which,
I think some team orders right there.
yeah, but it wouldn't make any sense considering Zombol has the penalties. So Benny can afford to be overtaken by Big Sauce, but Zombol can't. So it wouldn't make sense for it to be a team order.
Exactly, but it makes sense for Benny for the points in the championship.
What do you mean?
There's a car in between right now.
Yeah, but Big Sauce.
Maybe Benny picks up another penalty. You don't know. So just in case.
Yeah, I mean, could be.
As we see Faco going into Sector 3, almost finishing the race. He has done an extraordinary job. Unfortunate for Rulatorn that he picked up front wing damage on the AI of Kagoda. There's nothing he could do about it as he goes through the final corner, turn 16 onto the main straight. Faiko wins the sprint race ahead of Lennart by 2.5 seconds. He's done an amazing job, Colin.
Yeah, he's done a beautiful job. I mean, everything he had to do, of course, on his Ferrari. Rulatorn, normally he is way too fast, as Rulatorn actually now goes for an overtake on Test Wheel there. But Rulatorn normally too fast, but when something happens to Rulatorn, FICO is always there, as we actually see an overtake on the start-finish line from Zombol on Benny. Even though Zombol has the time penalty, it's actually very fun to see them going side by side there over the finish line. But anyway, FICO always being there when it counts, when he can get the scraps of the guys who make mistakes in front. And you can see that clearly in how he drove this race. It's very nice, and he did a good job.
Exactly.
That goes for everyone in the top 3 currently. The top 4 actually. So, anyway, what were your thoughts on the sprint race?
I think it was very unfortunate for Rulatorn. He did an extraordinary job to put out a 3-second gap on Faco and only just 2 laps into the sprint race. But he just ran into the AI of Kagoda. That was just so unfortunate for him. He could have won the race. But it was manipulated by an AI. Such a shame.
Yeah, that's a massive shame there for Rulatorn. And of course also for Kagoda. I mean, he picked up some damage there on the first lap, and then yeah, he was slow through the fast corners and then got rear-ended. Unfortunately, all part of racing, of course, but yeah, it doesn't make it any better. Let's hope for a better second race for these guys, of course. Rulatorn having the tall order of getting back through the field, but he has the pace, and the same for Kagoda. So will they be starting on these hard compounds to maybe overtake these slower cars in the earlier stages of the race, or will they maybe go for a more aggressive soft or medium strategy even?
Uh, I I think that they're going to set the hard tires on the car at the start of the race, because when there's an early safety car, they just can continue